Oh, that's a beautiful plant, Diane. I've got a string of pearls also. All I do with it is I put it in my south-facing window and I water it every single Sunday. The reason most people are unsuccessful with their houseplants can be summed up basically in one story. It goes a little something like this. A person gets a houseplant, whether they got it from a friend, like a gift or something like that, or maybe they inherited it, or maybe they just saw it while they were grocery shopping and picked it up. They're like, oh, I've got the perfect spot for it. So usually when people get a houseplant, they don't just put it somewhere and guess. They'll do a little bit of research. Most people do a little bit of research. They'll post on a public forum or maybe like on a Facebook group. They'll ask their friends or family, relatives, things like that. The advice goes something like this. Oh, that's a beautiful plant, Diane. I've got a string of pearls also. All I do with it is I put it in my south-facing window and I water it every single Sunday. And so this new plant parent's like, okay, great. They get their string of pearls. They put it in their south-facing window. They water it every Sunday. But after a couple of weeks, their string of pearls is starting to die. So they're thinking like, oh my gosh, what's happening? My relative, my mom, let's just say it's a mom, they have their plant in the south-facing window. I water it every Sunday. They water it. What's going on? Let me put this back really quick. Okay, so in this story, mom was meaning well, but she didn't take into account that the light exposure is probably different for her daughter in this case. I don't know why I'm a daughter. Okay, it's a mother-daughter duo, let's just say. It does happen pretty frequently that way though, to be honest. Mom didn't consider that the daughter's south-facing window exposure might be different than her south-facing window exposure. I mean, even if they were neighbors, they probably wouldn't have an identical or even a similar enough light exposure to make a plant, especially like a string of pearls, thrive. And that's just because there are so many different things that can obstruct or change the lighting in a room. Covered patios. You know, a lot of times on south-facing exposures, because it's your hottest exposure, typically they'll put like a covered patio over it or find some way to dampen the amount of light that's coming through, because that also means heat in the house. So that's very common. Is your neighbor's house right next to you? Do you have shutters or blinds? How do you angle them? Curtains, are they sheer? Are they light blocking? Do you have solar screens on your window? Are they tinted in any way? There are just so many things, so many factors that can change the amount of light a person gets through their window. I mean, even in the same house, forget like being neighbors, your south-facing exposure can change from one window to the next, even on the same wall. And because light is so important for your houseplants, again, especially for the string of pearls, if you get that wrong, you're going to get plant care wrong. The plants are just not going to do well if you don't get that lighting absolutely correct, or at least correct enough to have positive growth. So then what happens usually is the excited new plant parent gives up or decides to try again another time. But more often than not, they really just decide like, oh, I didn't get the green thumb gene. My mom has the green thumb. I'm not meant to grow plants. I could kill a succulent. That type of mentality, you know? And then they go throughout life having missed out on all the positive benefits of having houseplants in your space. It's a real shame. Instead, I recommend everybody get a light meter. This is a little gadget that is used for measuring the amount of light you get in a different space. It's like 20 or 30 bucks, and it'll tell you how much light your houseplants are getting. It's okay to believe mom. It's okay to believe your friend or your neighbor or the internet or whatever, but it's always nice to have a little bit of peace of mind to see if your south-facing exposure is the same as your mom's. Recently, somebody told me a really good analogy for light meters. They said, sure, you don't need a light meter to be successful with your houseplants, but you also don't need a meat thermometer to make sure that your chicken is cooked all the way through. But it's really nice to have the peace of mind. And that's basically what a light meter is. You just hold it up to your leaf, make sure that it's getting the proper amount of light, which you can search on the internet. You know, you have string of pearls. Just type in string of pearls foot candle requirements, and the studies will come up. People study this. They've done research. They've recorded exactly how much light they need every single day in order to thrive. So you can get like a $20, $30 tool, whatever these are, and just know that you have the most important aspect of houseplant care, the lighting, absolutely covered. So whether you want to grow a single houseplant like a really beautiful tree or something, or if you want to have a collection of 500, I don't judge around here. I'm just saying it's such a no-brainer for me. So if you're watching this and you have a friend who just got their first string of pearls from the grocery store and they say, hey, I'd love to take care of my string of pearls just like you, don't tell them that you put it in your south-facing window and you water it every Sunday. Turn them on to something like a light meter. They can make sure their plant is getting enough light, and then all other aspects of houseplant care have more room for error. I love it. I think everyone should have a light meter. I'll just say it.